Welcome to another episode of Seven Laws podcast. My name is Michal Pur. I am a journalist and analyst, and here with me is Professor Miroslav Barta. Hi, Mirek.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Egyptologist and archaeologist, and today we are going to talk about a theory which was once really famous. Nowadays, it's a part of historical thinking, namely theory formulated back in 1993 by Samuel Huntington, a profound American scientist serving at Harvard University for almost half a century. Good morning, everyone, again.
Yeah. So the name of the book is Clash of Civilizations.
The Clash of Civilizations.
So maybe I think it's one of the most important books now in geopolitics, maybe in politics in general. Do you think so?
It used to be once really influential, if not the first option for dealing with international relationships. To provide a brief introduction, this theory was for the first time published as an article, as a study, a relatively short study published back in 1993, as I said already, in Foreign Affairs, a magazine or journal. And then, because people started to be immensely interested in not only in Huntington, but in his way of thinking about the principles of international relationships, he basically published the same theory in a book with the same title, The Clash of Civilizations. The book appeared in 1996, and I would say that almost, at least for 2 decades, became one of the most influential theories how to view international scene. As a consequence of the book, there were many conferences organized, and even around 2010, if I'm not mistaken, there was a major conference and publication organized to discuss the impact of once so influential and powerful theory of Samuel Huntington.
What is very interesting that he was more than 60 years old when he published his study.
Good things take time, Michael.
Yes, definitely. I will wait for my time for maybe I hope no more than 10 years.
We are still at the beginning of our careers compared to Samuel Huntington.
Hope so. But I feel I would like to retire now. What is important for me that he worked for Jimmy Carter. So he has an opportunity to sense the politics, to make sense about the politics. And I think this is the reason why he wrote this study. So when he was 60 plus years old, because he already knew everything. Yeah, and that's it. So just tell me what led Huntington to create Clash of Civilization after the Cold War, because it was in 1993. It's 4 years after the end of the Cold War. So why?
This is hard to say, frankly speaking, because I never happened to talk to him. But my feeling is, here from Central Europe, is that Huntington experience as a Albert J. Weatherhead III professor. He had a chair at Harvard with this name. He experienced a bipolar world since the 50s till the late 80s of the last century, and then came the collapse of the Soviet Union, the collapse of the Eastern communist regimes all over Europe, Eastern Europe, I mean, back then. And all of a sudden, there was a new reality. There was no Soviet Union anymore. And there was one sort of reaction was by Francis Fukuyama, who said, okay, that's it. That's the end, so to say, of the history, because the evil disappeared from the international scene, and now we will have more or less all over the globe either traditional or new democracies developing, and this will be our future. That's why he wrote his book, The End of History. And then there are people like Samuel Huntington who are saying, okay, one colossal conflict disappeared from the geopolitical map of the world, namely the Cold War between the United States and Russia, to simplify it. And now we will have new kinds of conflicts. And in his opinion, those were conflicts based on different cultures and religions. And then I can talk about, because I made me a list of these specific civilizations, but to keep it simple and understandable. So in my opinion, this is the setting that led Huntington to relatively very quick formulation of the basic principles of his theory, published, as you said, as I said, early in 1993.
I think we can say he divided the world in 8 parts. So based on not only on the religion, but mainly on the religion, which is very, I would say, surprising for someone who never read the study or the book. So the first is Western civilization. Is our civilization?
May I interrupt you a bit?
Yes.
Before we get to those 8 basic zones or areas on the planet, it's important to say that he based his division into these 8 different units on culture, on not only religious but also cultural definitions between individual civilizations. And he says that the most likely future areas of conflicts will be their border zones. I mean, China and Russia, or Africa and Europe, etc. And now we can proceed with those eight categories. But before we start, there's one more remark to be made, one clear remark, namely that this theory doesn't reflect anymore contemporary geopolitics as we can experience it, because we can see that there is a rising number of internal conflicts, there is a rising number of economic conflicts. So the wars or the conflicts can have completely different connotations, backgrounds, and consequences, causes, first of all. So Huntington's theory is still influential. It's impossible to ignore it, but it badly needs an update. So it's part of the research on civilizations. It's part of the historical thinking, but doesn't match the contemporary geopolitical reality.
Which part is out of date for you?
Because he says it's these 8 different zones, cultural and religious zones, that will create the future conflicts. But we know now that the wars are led in economy, on the territory of individual civilizations inside, and Europe is a typical example, and I think it applies very well to the United States as well.
Yes, because let's see the war in the Ukraine, because the Ukraine is a part, according to Huntington, is a part of this Greek Orthodox church,
and culturally
civilization,
and religiously it's very similar.
Yeah, in culture.
Let's not say identical, but quite similar.
So it's inside the region he described. So that's something else, and that's much more difficult.
Yeah, it's a very nice example. I totally agree.
Yeah. So there, Western civilization, Greek
Western
Orthodox
civilization that includes North America, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. New Zealand is based on, according, now we quote Huntington, on Christianity, Greek-Roman philosophy, and Enlightenment starting in the 18th century. It's characterized by liberalism, liberal democracies, capitalism, and secularism. So these are the basic advantages, I would say, of not only characteristics, but still advantages to our modern Western civilization we live in.
Yes,
and we should be proud of it.
We should.
In many cases, it doesn't.
It can change in few years. So
No,
we will see.
I'm quite positive in this case. It not always we perform the best way we could deliver the output, but still, I think it's like Churchill said about democracy. We know that has many disadvantages, but still, it's the best what we can have, and I think it applies as well to Western civilization, if we want or not. At least my personal conviction.
Yes. Yes, I think that's true. But we are recording this podcast. I think it was yesterday or today. It depends on the time zone. When there was a second assassination attempt on Donald Trump. So,
Florida, and we will get to assassinations in the near future.
Yes, yes. I think so. You already talked about the border zone. He also wrote about the Balkan, the Caucasus, the Middle East, and Kashmir, and the border between the China and India. Do you think that this prediction is still relevant?
To a large degree, yes. We can't exclude this theory from our understanding of contemporary world, because we can see it's the border between China and neighboring civilizations. Let's see, for instance, about India. Let's see about, though they are not directly connected by a real border, it's a Japanese civilization. There is a Russian civilization. And I think that especially in the last few months, politicians and scientists dealing with contemporary geopolitics started to consider as a major future zone of conflict the border zone between China and Russia, and it's basically an implicit conflict or very intensive specific form of relationship that started to run there already a couple of years, if not almost a decade ago. So I think that to a large extent, as I said already, Huntington was right when he was writing his theory, either
in 90s.
Back in the 1990s. But what I, and that's the message I touched upon already, is that the theory, if he had an ambition to explain completely geopolitics of the world, is incomplete, because it misses some important points we can observe right now, and it's basically different forms of wars.
I didn't know the study or the book. I say. Back in the 90s, I was actually a student of political science. And the first time I've heard about it, it was on 9/11. This was the first time I knew it exists, this theory. Is it the first case when you can apply his theory or no? I think so. In global,
well, it's
nobody knew about it before the 9/11. I think this is the most important moment for him, and he lived until the 2008.
Well, I for the first time took notice of his thoughts in 2001 when I spotted the Czech edition of the publication, yes, which is almost 5 years after his book publication, and
it was a few months before 9/11, I think.
And then everybody, and that made probably the series so popular because it was globally one major example on which you could easily apply the clash of civilizations. So what you say is very important, and I think that because of this disaster that took place in the United States, Huntington became probably more popular than he could ever hope for.
Because it was a clear clash, I would say, between the Western civilization and Islamic civilization, is the theory, his theory. And I don't know if there is another one. actually.
So, well, I think to a large
Because
extent, yes.
the war in the Balkan was already over from the 90s,
Well,
and
we have
this is the
Middle
one
East
of the
now.
border zone.
We have now the Middle East,
Yes, the Middle
which
East.
is
Yeah.
because
And is it the clash of the civilizations?
well, I think it's primarily it's a religious clash.
It is.
And
Everything's
as
religious
such-
in the Middle East.
As such, it falls into the category of the clash of civilizations, because the Jewish civilization is completely different from the Islamic civilization, despite the fact that for the most part of the history they have been sharing the same territory, experiencing the same or similar historical events and processes, facing the same environmental challenges, dealing with the same geopolitical setting, or well, it depends on their perspective, but to a large extent, they have a common, they share their destiny. And if I look at the Middle East, especially one of the oldest places that were ever settled in a modern way, I mean a sedentary way, is Jericho. And Jericho was plundered several times during military conflicts. Well, military, yes, I would say military conflicts. And basically the military conflicts never stopped reappearing in the peers. So it's at the same time cursed and blessed area in the world. And the fact is that all three major religions came into being just here. It's the Jewish religion, it's the Christian religion, and it's Islam. So maybe that's why that leads me to say that it's at the same time cursed and blessed part of the world, and I'm just really sorry for what is going on there. And well, I believe that there will be some solution, hopefully still taking place this year. And I think, to me at least, the only solution, and here I agree with most of the Arab countries involved in the conflict, directly or indirectly, and specifically spearheading diplomatic meetings both in Cairo and in the Middle East, that the idea of Bill Clinton, and he was talking about it earlier this year when he visited Prague, to create a Palestinian state is one of the most essential points in the future of the whole area. Palestinian state.
There is a popular dispute between the Huntington, which is already dead, and Francis Fukuyama, the next big thinker, I would say, in our civilization. And Huntington wasn't optimistic about the future, like clash of the civilization. And Francis Fukuyama wrote a study or the book, The End of History. It's a very positive view on our future. Who prevailed? Who won? I think it's clear. Huntington won.
I think that if I say it for both of us, it's Samuel Huntington for several reasons. Francis Fukuyama is an excellent, one of the brightest brains in the United States, if not in the whole world, has stayed an academic a scholar. Whereas Samuel Huntington, as we said, it served his had his service in the White House during the presidency of Jimmy Carter, and he could experience what it is to run, so to say, the world on an everyday basis. You know, solving conflicts, finding solutions, and etc. So, I think that I wish Fukuyama was right. But it's not right. But it's this minor or major observations and comments or criticism is by all means Samuel Huntington.
Yes,
And I'm sorry
I
to
would
say
say
it.
unfortunately.
I'm sorry to say it as well, yes. But it's good to remember him because he was he still is a very influential thinker, at least through his writings. And I think it's very important that he produced this piece of scholarship, How to See the World.
Thank you.
It was our pleasure. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.